Nora, people today, they kind of look at Hollywood and they see the big blockbusters, the streaming wars, all that. But what they often don't grasp is just how absolutely total the control was back in the golden age. I mean, it's almost unbelievable.
Oh, absolutely. Like, we talk about studio system, but I think for a lot of people, myself included sometimes, it's still a bit abstract. Like, what did that really mean for an actor or a director? Was it really an iron grip, or is that just a bit of dramatic license over time?
No, it was definitely an iron grip. I mean, think of it this way. The major studios, MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount, RKO, 20th Century Fox, they weren't just production houses. They owned the entire vertical. They owned the talent, the backlots, the distribution, and even the movie theaters themselves. Do you know what I mean? So, they controlled every single aspect from concept to screen. It was truly unprecedented. And frankly, we haven't seen anything quite like it since. It's really quite wild to think about.
Wow. So, like, a star wasn't just working for a studio, they were essentially owned by them? That's a whole different level of commitment or control.
Absolutely. Owned. I mean, literally. They'd sign these long-term contracts, typically 7 years, and the studio had options to renew or drop them. But during that time, they weren't just dictating roles, Nora. They were dictating their entire image, their name. Studios would change actors' names, if they weren't glamorous enough. Think Lucille LeSueur becoming Joan Crawford, or Archie Leach becoming Cary Grant. And that's just the start.
Oh, right. I've heard about that. Like changing their look too? Yeah? Hair color, nose jobs, even their teeth? I mean, that feels so invasive. Was there any pushback, or were actors just like so desperate for the shot that they'd pretty much agree to anything?
Well, yeah, largely the latter. The thing is, the studios were the only game in town for the big time. They provided everything. Acting coaches, singing lessons, dancing instruction, publicity agents, wardrobe, makeup artists, even the escorts for premieres, if you catch my drift. They'd craft a persona, a brand, and then they'd sell it to the public. And they managed their stars' public lives, too. Like, they'd arrange marriages, hide scandals, control relationships. It was all about maintaining that pristine, saleable image. It's incredible, really, the extent they went to.
So, like, basically, you signed away your life to become a star. That's a pretty hefty price for fame, you know?
It really was. And the myths, oh man, the myths are endless, but a lot of them have roots in truth. Like the morality clauses in contracts, totally real. Studios had private investigators sometimes, following stars to ensure they weren't doing anything that would tarnish their image or the studios. And if they did, the studios could fine them, suspend them, or even, terminate their contract.
Wow. So, like, the tabloids of the day, they weren't just making stuff up. The studios were actively managing the narrative. That's wild. It almost sounds like an acting career and more like a very glamorous, high-stakes prison sentence in a way. Were there any actors who really tried to fight back effectively? Or was it just too powerful a system?
Well, yeah, some did, but it was incredibly difficult. Olivia de Havilland, for instance, famously sued Warner Bros. In the 1940s over her contract and won. That was a huge deal. It essentially helped chip away at the absolute power of those 7-year contracts. But for the most part, actors were, kind of stuck. The studios knew they had the power, and they used it. They controlled everything, from how much money you made, often a pittance compared to the film's earnings, to who you dated. It was a finely tuned machine for profit and image.
That's amazing about de Havilland, though. That must have taken so much courage, you know?
It absolutely did. But here's the kicker, Nora. This incredibly restrictive system also produced some of the most iconic films in cinema history. I mean, think about it. Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz. These weren't just thrown together. They were the product of a well-oiled machine that, for all its downsides, knew how to produce a polished, entertaining product. The studio system, it's a real paradox, isn't it? On one hand, creative suppression, on the other, unparalleled artistic output.
Yeah, it really is. Like, you see those old movies, and they're just so grand, so perfectly crafted. But then you think about all the talent that might have been stifled or just never got their shot because they didn't fit the studio mold. Do you know what I mean? Like, were there a lot of forgotten legends because of that? Just like people who never quite broke through the system?
Oh, absolutely. Loads. Think of how many character actors, those incredible supporting players, were just perpetually in contract, never getting a lead role because the studio had their A-listers they were pushing. Or even writers and directors who had their vision completely overridden by studio executives. The system prioritized the studio's brand over individual artistic expression, which, makes for consistent output, but also meant a lot of singular voices never got heard. It's a real shame when you think about it.
Yeah, it totally is. Like, what masterpieces did we miss out on because of all that control?
Exactly. What did we miss? But that brings us to today. Do you think, any of that golden age studio system mentality, still lingers in modern Hollywood? Or is it totally gone with the wind, so to speak?
That's a good question. I mean, we don't have the 7-year contracts or the direct ownership of stars anymore, thankfully. But I think there are definite echoes. Like, studios still have immense power, especially with the rise of intellectual property, Marvel, Star Wars, all that. They're building franchises, kind of like they built star personas back then. And there's still a huge focus on image control, especially with social media. It's just, more decentralized now, maybe.
Yeah, that's a super astute point, Nora. It's not the explicit ownership, but the influence, the crafting of a narrative, and the push for what's marketable. Like, even today, there's always talk about bankable stars and how a studio greenlights a project based on who's attached. It's a different beast, but the underlying drive to control the product and the perception, that's still very much there.
Right. And like, even if an actor isn't literally owned, they're still beholden to public perception, brand deals, all these things that kind of shape what roles they can take or what image they project. It's almost a modern version of that studio system, just self-imposed sometimes.